there's a few things here, Saagar. I think it tracks somewhat with the conversation we were having about like the Republican agenda, how they've sort of slid right back to their 1990s ways. Like, there was a minute there where they wanted to pretend like they're all for the working class, but they're really challenged by what the modern working class actually is. So as we've had, for example, the Starbucks movement that's sweeping the country, and you have a lot of, you know, liberal, pink-haired, potentially Bernie Sanders supporters who are at the forefront of the labor movement, who, yes, many of them have either a college degree or have attended some college. They haven't really been able to grapple with that part of the working class.
I've always thought the term is nebulous and basically just gets glommed onto by whomever they want, right? And that's actually part of the issue, which is that in general, American society is not currently stratified by working class, non-working class. It's really just, do you have a college degree and not? And the working class who are not college degree mostly are culturally Republican, culturally liberal. Starbucks people are also working class and vote Democrat. So it's like, well, it's kind of a wash. I will say, I think you laid out a very good case on why college is terrible and why the industry itself is really bad. I mean, the fact that the college wage premium has declined like this. But
yeah,
look, I would just return to, I think it's insane in order to not deal with these college people and spend, or not spend, forgive, quote unquote, what, 300 so billion, which is effectively a giveaway to the college industry because they don't get punished for the lies that they sold. I mean, it's not just society. The colleges themselves told these people, which I think is criminal. The people who did not graduate from college, which is 1/4 of people who are currently in college will not graduate. They were sold a bill of goods by this industry, not just society, specifically the college themselves. And the college pays zero price for that. And frankly, I have not seen one Democratic or left position to grapple with that fact whatsoever.
Well, I have. So
free college is not grappling with that.
Free college, but also, I mean, there's a very serious left conversation happening right now about tuition control, about limiting the cost of tuition. I mean, that would get it under control. What I don't see is any seriousness on the right to actually tackle these problems. Yes, there are other problems, no doubt about it. But the fact that these people got screwed over, many of whom, yes, are very sympathetic working class type of people who aren't just working in the store, but they're truck drivers, they're Amazon warehouse workers, they're literally in every industry you can imagine. People who have this type of debt. 63% of Americans have gone to some college. So this is a lot of people that we're talking about here. But I don't see the fact that this doesn't deal with everything as an argument to not do what we can do right now. It just seems like Republicans are interested in coming up with the talking point about how this is just helping gender studies majors and it's a direct slap in the face of truck drivers, ignoring the fact that actually a lot of truck drivers are going to benefit from this too. And they're not serious about, you know, they're issuing their agenda. They're not serious about tackling like the college cost issue. They're just interested in throwing up roadblocks to doing the one limited thing that Biden is able to do within his power right now on his own.
There's no question there's a lot of bad faith, but I wouldn't say that the gender woke stuff is just studies, and we shouldn't forget how much of this bleeds into gen eds and into just general cultural milieu. But put that aside, because I also think it matters in terms of administrative costs and what these people are spending on and what exactly the bloat is coming from, which is dramatic new spending is going towards these initiatives.
Yeah, but again, where did that come from? I mean, that started when public funding started to be stripped from education. This starts with Ronald Reagan in California, stripping education, kicking them out to the free marketplace. Like, Republicans don't want to deal with that.
No,
they
just
want to have some silly like talking point about gender studies majors and oh, it's woke, which has got to be, I mean, if you are that like Amazon worker who's being benefited by this, you're like, what are you talking about? That's not me. That wasn't my experience whatsoever.
Well, I mean, sure, it's definitely more of an elite phenomenon than it is anything else, but elites obviously punch above their weight. And in general, I think that culturally this is going to be a wash because of what I discussed, which is that at the end of the day, this is a policy for educated people and for people who lifetime earnings are probably going to be higher than people who didn't go to college. Although that is generally trending down. In general, though, that's how things break out. So you're kind of pitting two kind of people against each other. Personally, I very much share your worldview. I think there's a lot more similarity between the person who was robbed and dropped out of community college and the person who graduated with a ton of credit card debt and goes to a trade union. I would love to live in a country in which those two people have some sort of their interests represented. But I don't think that we really live in that country.
I just disagree with the idea that this is pitting people against each other. I see people like Ted Cruz pitting people against each other, like directly making the case that, okay, this is going to come directly directly out of your pocket. Well, no, it's only going to come directly out of your pocket if Republicans get their way and raise taxes on the middle class, the working class, as they've been proposing. The other place it could come out of is, Biden and the Democrats just hike taxes on corporations and put it at 15%, something that Republicans want to roll back. So the idea that this is pitting people against each other, well, yeah, Republicans are trying to make it that way, but that's not actually the reality of where this funding is ultimately going to come from. And again, I think they go out of their way to paint the working class in this very narrow definition, to paint the people who benefit in this very narrow way, when in fact, this is a broad swath of Americans. You have obviously the biggest determinant of whether people support this policy is, number one, young people, overwhelmingly supportive. Black people, actually, the racial demographic groups, the highest support was among African Americans. So in terms of the political analysis, I actually think Ted Cruz gets it right, because you've just delivered in a really, really tangible, this changed my life immediately kind of way for a key part of the Democratic base, and could definitely help them come the fall with enthusiasm, give them a reason to vote for Democrats that they maybe didn't have in the past.
There's no way to know on that. Let's put that aside, because it's going to be a real-time test. If it actually does happen, it'll be fascinating, because, look, we also have to say this. It's not like child tax credit did a whole lot for Democrats. And people talk a big game about how they're going to do something, and then a lot of them still don't come out to vote. So we'll see in terms of that. I'll just return to why I think it's pitting people against each other. At the end of the day, this group, who is doing better in life than everybody else, let's be honest, it is basically 50-50. If you're more educated, even some college, you're going to earn more over the course of your lifetime than others, just got a tremendous gift from the U.S. government. Now, it is true the U.S. government is doing nothing, aided very much so by the Republican Party, to not help this 50%. Mm-hmm. But they are also not getting anything, even from this. So it is the status quo that these people got a tremendous, probably the single largest benefit from the U.S. government from an outright dollars perspective outside, I would say, I think that, outside of the child tax credit. So in the last year or so, when 50% of the most downwardly mobile in the people in the country are not getting anything.
But the government gives out subsidies to different groups of people all the time.
But not this large, 43 billion.
Trump did a big subsidy for farmers.
But there's 10 million farmers
we did checks for people, and those were means tests. There are, massive subsidies that we both supported for chip companies that just passed through the Congress. So the fact that this benefits one group of people and does not benefit all people is not an argument for not doing it, especially because there's a real moral case here for the fact that these people got screwed. This is not only hurting them, but it's hurting the economy overall, that you have an entire generation that is so saddled with debt that they're unable to do the basics of get married, start a family, buy a house, all of those sorts of things. So there's a very clear moral case here. There is a very clear economic case here. And this is also not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is what was able to be done right now. Now, if Republicans want to work with Democrats to pass a universal benefit to cancel $10,000 in debt for every American under the $125,000 income limit, I would be happy to see it.
How many Dems would vote for that?
They are not interested in that.
If that tax college endowments, how many Dems would vote for it? The answer is none. There's not a single Democrat in the U.S. Senate who would vote in order to tax college endowments. These are a core constituency, though, for Dems. You cannot ignore the behemoth of criminals that these people are.
But again, how does that have anything to do with this? Because the fact that you aren't fixing the whole thing at once doesn't argue against doing something.
But there will be 43 million people with the same level of debt in 5 years from now.
This is life-changing. For this 43 million people, this is literally life-changing. And you make the case, this helps to make the case of what a scam this was and how rotten this system actually is. That puts that on the agenda. So yes, this should be the first reform. Then we should have something like tuition controls and public universities so that everyone has access to being able to go to college and benefit from whatever the wage premium is at this point, which is not ultimately all that much.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We'll continue this discussion.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.